Good day, I'm Vincent Saxtetter, and this is the After the Age of Fire channel. This is episode 43, recorded on May 2nd, 2026. The title is Deathwish, Will We End Our Race Through Nuclear or Other Means? So, just is our human race going to kill itself completely? This is a prepping channel. It's for you and your family line. To prepare you to flourish and thrive and reproduce in the coming era. We're ending an era of 250 years of doubling the human race as a whole. Averaged across the human race had around 2 times as much of everything every 22 years. So each generation had twice as much. It's averaging across everyone. Now we're going through a transition, or about to start a transition, out of this era of doubling into another era where eventually in the next 100 to 200 years we'll have less energy than we have now. Still not a minuscule amount of energy, quite a large amount of energy per person, but right now we have 46,000 calories of energy from coal, oil, and gas. Mostly about 10% of that is from other sources that we call renewables and nuclear. Plus, in addition to that 46,000, we have another 15,000 from food, fodder, and wood, things that we grow on a yearly basis. And in the coming era, we'll have something more like 30,000 calories per person per day, averaging across the world. So more or less, if you want to understand where that number comes from, I invite you to review the first 35 or so episodes of this channel, which included many episodes devoted to a thorough examination of all the energy sources that are available to us and the costs that go with them. Costs not just in terms of money, but in terms of our labor, our inconvenience, risks, and health effects. And in the end, by any metric, starting with money, we don't have what it takes to continue providing energy for ourselves after coal, oil, and gas are no longer as cheap as they are today. Right now, they're extraordinarily cheap. So that section of this channel, which was devoted to examining our doublings, the era of doublings, and how much energy we'll have long term, ended around episode 38. And if you can go back and look at that episode. Now we're in the second section of this channel, which is about the transition that we're in right now, more or less. If we're not in it, then we're about to start it. And we're looking at trying to understand how to recognize the transition when and as it happens, and where are we, trying to understand where we are in it. So episodes 39 through 42 were about mathematical patterns that this transition could follow, and then starting with this one, episode 43, we're looking at the events of our day and trying to compare them to the patterns of 39 through 42, those mathematical patterns, and trying to draw conclusions. Overall, what's going on is similar in some ways to a stunt biker taking off of a ramp into thin air. We've been going through a period of extraordinary growth, which is that period of going up the ramp, and at some point we'll find that, like the stunt biker, we're no longer supported by anything, and we don't have what it takes to sustain that growth. So it won't, and then at some point we'll still be going up, but at some point we'll reverse course and come down. Unlike a stunt biker, well, this is a stunt biker who comes down to a location that's a bit higher than he started, because over the last 250 years we have multiplied our energy consumption by around 1,000, and we're only going to go down by a factor of 2 or so. So episode 39 told us that this transition is not going to be an abrupt one, at least not if it's determined by the supply of easy coal, oil, and gas. Things that are mined or pumped from the ground don't give out in a year or two. They give out over decades, over generations, maybe 50 generations, maybe 50 years. So it won't be abrupt. In episode 40, looked at how orderly the transition might go. And so the most orderly transition you could think of is where your stunt biker goes up for a while and comes smoothly down and meets a ramp, and the ramp helps him meet the ground smoothly without any shocks. Another possibility is that we'll go up for a while and then we'll come down and we'll undershoot. We'll go below 30,000 and then we'll overshoot and then undershoot and then overshoot and gradually come to rest around 30,000 average, around the same every year. A third possibility is that the undershoots and overshoots will continue indefinitely. They won't get smaller. Another possibility is that there will be undershoots and overshoots, but some of them will be bigger than others, and the length of time that they take will be unpredictable. So sometimes you'll have a very short boom or a long undershoot, and this will just keep going. So something like the topic that I talked about called tuning, I called it tuning, or what people talk about is the butterfly effect or chaos. This could happen. So overall, it seems more likely, since this is a huge world with all sorts of things in play, that we'll have all sorts of undershoots and overshoots. We'll just average to around 30,000 calories per person per day. Episode 41 was talking about the possibility that we might reorganize ourselves deliberately or be reorganized. So in any event, there will be a kind of reorganization, because right now our whole structure of our society and our individual lives is built around the fact that we've been multiplying every year and every generation, and sooner or later we'll have to live with the fact that we aren't multiplying every generation. We don't have twice as much every generation anymore, and so our standards for what's success and what's a good life will be different. So there will be that sort of reorganization, certainly, but here in episode 41, my interest was in the sort of reorganization that happens through some sort of cooperation. So it could be a deliberate cooperation of a number of actors, for instance, like stock market bubbles and crashes, where you have millions of investors and companies somehow cooperating in some way to produce a large effect, where suddenly there's a crash or there's a large bubble. There's another sort of cooperation, though, where you have something where it's not deliberate, it's something that happens to you, or happens to a group, or it could happen to the whole human race. It's a kind of cooperation of stress points and fractures, where it would be a bit like what happens to aging structures or aging people, that there are a number of small things that are problematic, and then gradually over time those small things coalesce into larger problems, and eventually they coalesce into such a large problem that a structure collapses or a person dies. And the same sort of thing could happen to the human race, a sort of a cooperation of many small things to produce a large readjustment in our way of life. um, and a very quick one too. Uh, episode 42, the previous episode, was about the lack of control, the unpredictability that we're entering into. Exponential growth, the time of doublings, was in some ways a very controlled life, where pretty much you could guarantee that 22 years from now we'd have twice as much of everything, and you could just set your watch by it. And we're entering into a time of unpredictability, and I discussed what to do about that. Now in this episode, we're beginning a series of episodes looking at the current events, what's going on in the world around us, and trying to interpret them as what they might tell us about the end of one era and the beginning of another. In this episode, I'll be talking about the scenario where the human race completely destroys itself and the planet. This is something that's been discussed a lot in movies and press and in every possible means of communication for going on 100 years now, and with that a lot of dread and foreboding and hopelessness touches many people's hearts, and we have to talk about this scenario because if until we address the scenario where some years from now the human race will just not be here anymore, because if we don't talk about this, then there's no point to discussing the transition or the future era. If we commit suicide, there won't be a future era. So because I'm entering into a discussion of the transition, and then in a later part of this channel I'll be talking about the future and how to prepare for it, I think this is the time to talk about the scenario where there won't be any future era for the human race. There won't be any transition. Instead, we just kill ourselves. And just to make a long story short, I'm going to tell you that no, we aren't going to kill ourselves. We're not going to kill every single human down to the last man. So that's not to say that we won't give it a try. In fact, we have many means of destruction available, and we're using them all. So one of them is nuclear destruction, and we have a nuclear arsenal, or machine as I like to call it, that's capable of destroying several billion humans at one go. And I'll devote the next episode to nuclear destruction and to how far we could take it, what it would look like, and also why it couldn't possibly kill all 8 billion people on this planet. But we have many other means of killing huge numbers of people. There's bioweapons. In fact, there's continuing research on bioweapons, and there's a related kind of research called gain-of-function research, where you look at interesting ways of genetically altering viruses and bacteria for various purposes. And these are ways of killing many people. We also are engaged in all sorts of damage to the planet, and there's speculation that we might do something about the climate, or that we are affecting the climate. And maybe I'll get around to discussing that someday. But certainly, whether or not you believe in climate change and things like that, certainly we are having huge effects on the environment around us, and they aren't pretty effects. There's a lot of worry about AI and what AI might do to the human race. Whether or not you make anything of that, then there's also our failure to reproduce. Right now, most countries in the world by far are not reproducing, are not even keeping not maintaining their population. And if we keep going this way, our population will substantially reduce. There's also a number of killing campaigns that we continue to participate in. One of them is euthanasia, which currently is growing more and more popular. Then there's abortion. In the last 50 years, around 2 billion babies have been aborted, murdered. Then there's genocides, and you can think of any number of genocides that have happened in the last century, or you can go back further if you like. Then there's eugenics and gene manipulation, which could be ways of killing large numbers of people. And then we try every other means that's available to us. There's wars. There's obesity. Currently, something like half of the human race is obese, with all the myriad health effects that go with that. There's addictions, and there's the suicides, millions of suicides. So you take all of these together, and the human race is making a good go of just about every way of destroying itself you could think of. So, and it's not just nuclear. That's what I'm saying. There's we're engaged in all sorts of killing, and preparing for yet more killing on grand scales. Now, my fundamental response to this is, again, no, we're not going to kill all of us, okay, but first of all, yes, we do have a death wish, and it's much worse than we admit. So, and I'll get into what I mean by the death wish a little bit more, but it's very obvious. It's many of us, or perhaps all of us, harbor a secret desire to kill ourselves, kill other people. But even though we have a death wish, I think we don't have the self-control that would be required to kill ourselves, every single one of us, down to the last man. We're not like lemmings, where you take an entire herd of lemmings and they walk in lockstep off of a cliff, and we can't replicate what happened in Jonestown in 1978. Jonestown's a little encampment that had been set up by a religious sect from the U.S. in Guyana, and in 1978 they organized a mass suicide of 900 and murders of 918 people. So we are not all, as a human race, all 8 billion people, going to quietly stand in line while somebody hands us cups of suicide or shoots us in the head. We just can't get it together, and are not willing to get it together for all of us to go down at once, okay, or in lockstep. We don't have this self-control. And then, as I discussed in a previous episode 34, and I'll briefly discuss again here, there's absolutely no possibility that we could destroy the planet. So we can damage the planet some, but we should actually be more worried about damaging ourselves. And as far as hurting ourselves goes, we can kill billions of ourselves, but we can't kill every single one. So what is this death wish that we have? It's some desire to kill others, to kill some other people, or to kill all other people, and it can be a desire to kill ourselves, kill myself in particular, or to kill the whole human race. And the fact is that each of us human beings can simultaneously hold both the worst and the best desires. We may hide them from ourselves, or justify them, but the fact is that we do have in one person, we can and do hold both the worst, most demonic desires and the most beautiful and holy desires, even in one day, or going on, coexisting. And each of us is responsible We are responsible agents, responsible for our actions, and we're responsible for killing some of those desires and growing some others. Like a farmer, each day you see weeds poking up, thoughts and desires in your heart, in your mind, and you see the weeds, and you're responsible for killing those off before they turn into habits and actions and ways of thinking, and you're responsible for promoting the other ones that are good ones. And the fact is, by the end of our lives, we arrive at being interiorly, not obviously on the outside usually, but interiorly either something like a monster, or something almost godlike. And in fact, here I'm referring to an essay called "The Weight of Glory" by C.S. Lewis, and I encourage you to pick that up and read the last couple pages at least, or better, read the whole thing. But each of us is responsible for our desires, and we have both terrible and wonderful ones, and we're responsible for what we make of them. So that's what I mean by a death wish. We do fill our minds and hearts with stories that don't acknowledge a death wish. For instance, for nuclear war, we have stories about nuclear war. Like, one is that we could avoided by dropping bombs in Japan, we could avoid 10 million dead in an awful, terrible war as the Americans invaded Japan. Or since then, there's been talk about deterrence and all the discussion about the Cold War and mutually assured discussion and many other things. But the fact is, that's at a conscious level, at a rational level. But the fact is that the human heart is much deeper than what we think, and it's the source of everything we do. And the great lengths that we go and that we continue to take to employ every available means to achieve death, I listed them. There are an awful lot of them, and we continue to develop new ones. The fact that we continue to develop them with great energy and strength is just absolutely incontrovertible evidence that we do harbor a death wish. The human race, individually and as a whole, has a great desire for death. For example, you just look at the nuclear machine, which we developed as quickly as possible once we realized that it was possible to create nuclear bombs. We just went for it with great energy, and we did it. We made it as quick as possible, and it became fully functional in sometime between 1960 and 1970. We perfected it, and we continued to go to great expense to maintain and upgrade our nuclear machine, which now has more than 10,000 warheads ready to kill billions in hours. So I don't think there's any way to, if you look at the real evidence of what's going on around us, to deny that the human race has a great desire for death and for self-destruction. So we do have a great desire for death, and we may and do try to kill ourselves. But what I'm saying is we won't succeed. We've tried. Every single human race, every single race and tribe within the human race has blood on its hands. In general, if you look back far enough, we have a lot of blood on our hands. In World War II, we killed between 60 and 75 million people. COVID-19 may have originated in a scientific lab. But we just, there are two basic reasons why we won't succeed. One is we don't have control over our destiny. We don't even have control over being able to continue our growth. That's been a big theme of this channel, is that at some point our doublings will finish, and it's around now, and we simply can't control whether the doublings of our consumption will continue. And controlling your growth is a much smaller matter than all of us marching in lockstep toward a death of 8 billion people. So I'm just saying we don't have that control. And another sign that we're not going to do it is that we haven't done it yet. For instance, we've not used the nuclear machine, all the 15,000 warheads. We rushed towards developing it. We did our best to make it as dangerous as possible, as quickly as possible. And then for 60 years it stood there and still not been used. We may eventually use it, but the fact that we have waited 60 years to nuke everyone is a sign that something else is afoot. That we don't have within ourselves what it would take to kill us all off. And it's not that we can't. Well, we could, in theory, if 8 billion people lined up for their cups of cyanide, we could kill ourselves, or in any number of other ways. But apparently we're not. We don't have what it takes to make that happen. But it's not what we're missing is not something physical. We have the physical capability to kill every one of us, but there's something else that's missing, and it's intangible. It's something in the heart. It's in some other realm, okay? And it's something that restrains us from suicide, from racial suicide. It's stronger than us in some sense. We keep trying to kill and kill and kill, but something holds us back. It's strong. It restrains us, and we have good evidence that it has restrained us, whatever it is, for a long time. And we have good hope, therefore, that it will continue to restrain us, whatever it is. Something intangible, something beyond the physical, but some very solid reason, stronger than us, stronger than all our desires, is keeping us from killing every single one of us. Okay? So I'm saying, sure, we may kill and kill and kill again, but somehow we're under an intangible, you could say, spiritual restraint, and therefore we never take everything all the way. Now, as for killing the planet, that's just not possible for us. I discussed this in episode 34, and I'll repeat the main points right now. So I said there that the biosphere is tuned, and what I meant by tuning was that everything depends, the biosphere's function depends on every single detail of everything in it and around it, and therefore every one of our actions can interfere with the function of the biosphere, and our actions have larger effects than we might imagine or predict or foresee. And this is what I call poisoning. It's in general the fact that in general whatever you do around here in this biosphere has bigger effects than you would expect. But our main worry should be about how that poisoning affects us. And in fact I'll be discussing that. That's a big theme of this channel, and will continue to be a big theme, especially as I talk about how to prepare for the future. But also in this current section where I'm talking about where we are today. So as for being able to end the biosphere, there are some some difficulties, some major reasons to think that it's impossible for us to do that. Okay, one is that for a one-of-a-kind tune system, if there's only one of it, say a particular bridge, because every bridge experiences different wear and tear than every other bridge, and therefore the final shock that brings the whole thing down will be considerably different from one bridge to another. It's very hard to predict the particular poison, the particular small thing that brings a bridge down, or an avalanche, or which of 1,000 causes of death is this particular old person vulnerable to, or what particular small thing will change a weather pattern. But there are these small things that you can do to change a weather pattern or bring an avalanche down, but they're hard to predict, they're very hard to find. And the same thing would be true for the biosphere. It's one of a kind as far as we know, and therefore it'll be very hard to find the secret key that brings the whole thing down. And in fact, our ideas about what would be appropriate poisons are very far from the mark. You can spend a lot of time, and in fact it's practically impossible to find the secret key to bring a system down. You have to keep, and you know, this is a huge, this is a whole world, and the likelihood that we'll find the right key anytime soon is about zero. Okay, and our ideas are very unimaginative, like carbon dioxide. The fact is that carbon dioxide levels have gone up and down and up and down for, you know, as long as this world has existed, and why this particular variation in the carbon dioxide would happen to destroy the biosphere, while all the other fluctuations in carbon dioxide haven't destroyed the biosphere for billions of years, is beyond me. It's just an unimaginative kind of thinking. That's not to say that we can, in fact, maybe sometime I'll do an episode about climate change, but the idea that we could completely destroy our biosphere with carbon dioxide is just, that's fantasy. It's gone through a lot worse than anything we can cause. We just don't have the power or energy on hand to match many of the other events that have happened in this world over the last millions and billions of years. So whatever we do to the biosphere is going to be, in the end, small compared to what's been done to it already, and the chances are that that small thing that we do will prove to be the right key and to bring down this tuned system is also vanishingly small. So what I'm saying is, we could, overall I've said we could kill ourselves. We have the physical possibility to kill our race, but we're not going to do it because we don't have the self-control and because something is restraining us. And then on the other hand, it's just basically impossible that we could destroy the whole planet. So be suspicious of people who like to keep track of a doomsday clock, okay, who claim that they know how many minutes to midnight it is to the destruction of the whole human race, and who claim to be doing this because they claim to be concerned for the whole human race. I think that the people who do this share far too much of their thinking with the people who produce the situation that we're in. And in fact, these people who are promoting a doomsday clock or talk about life about the world as if we are about to destroy ourselves or might be about to destroy ourselves, these people in general want to be power brokers. They are also posturing themselves to look good, to look virtuous and moral, and they don't propose the necessary fundamental changes that would be required to really help the human race in fundamental ways. they're doing a power grab, that what they're doing is not constructive. To go beyond that, if it all starts caring for the human race is actually, it doesn't matter if you don't care for, if you aren't absolutely committed to the people around you, including the weakest, the most unfortunate, the most vulnerable, the poor, and also your family members, the people you're vowed to. If you aren't willing to see things through at the cost of great personal sacrifice, or complete personal sacrifice for the people around you, then you have no business talking about caring for the planet or caring for the human race. Each human being has the same dignity and preciousness as the whole human race. That's a very special thing about human beings. We carry in ourselves that each human being is unsacrificable. You can't say that 10 human beings have 10 times the worth of one human being. No, each human being has the same dignity and glory and deserves the same treatment as if he were the only human being on this planet. It's really a delusion to spend a lot of time thinking about the well-being of 1 billion people or of 8 billion people, especially if you are not devoting yourself wholeheartedly to the well-being of the people that depend on you and the people who are vulnerable around you. One last note is that when we experience forebodings about the end of our civilization or of our race, it seems to me like often enough it's very like the experience of a 2-year-old, the terrible twos, when they have tantrums. A 2-year-old doesn't get what they want, and they proceed to act as if the world were ending. In fact, they can't imagine a world where they don't get what they want. And so when their mom or dad says, no, you can't have that 5th ice cream cone, they presume that everything's done and finished, and they act that way. So I think for us, many times when we talk about our extinction or the end of the human race or of the civilization, we should as soon as we find ourselves tempted to think about that or talk about that, we should back up a minute and say, am I confusing what I want with my survival? Am I confusing whether I am Lord and Master of my life or whether we can proceed according to our plans as a nation or as a race and develop according to our agenda? Am I confusing these issues with whether we're going to be alive next year? And am I thinking like a 2-year-old? And I suspect that at the root of it, many of us are. So, no, there's plenty of life ahead of us, even if we don't get what we expect or what we want. And it could be a very good life. So with that, I'll close this episode, and I wish you a good week. And if you know anybody who may be interested in this content, then please encourage them to join in. Keep coming back. Have a wonderful week.